Why is innovation so hard? Well, one reason is the deck is stacked against us, and it's in our own thinking in a lot of ways. We're going to look at some three important cognitive biases or bugs in our mental software. These are things that are approaches, ways of thinking, ways of processing reality that may have been adaptive a long, long time ago. The focus of these cognitive biases often was on basic survival, not on higher order abstract thinking and really anything that would set up thinking for great innovation. And some of these are really are particularly powerful obstacles to innovation. Number one, bad is stronger than good. This is also known as the negativity bias, and it's the idea that negative information and experiences and even people have a stronger effect on us than positive ones do. We're hardwired to treat threats as more urgent than opportunities. This was historically vital, given a regular threat to existence. You're all familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At a time when most of us could only aspire to working out from physiological to more of the safety needs, we had less opportunity even to worry about love and belonging needs, esteem, and self-actualization. The priority was surviving until the next day, so getting really good at identifying threat and taking quick, decisive action on that threat was important. Survival instinct that served our ancestors so well then trips us up regularly now. Back then, those who weren't so risk-oriented, who didn't have that ability to spot threat and take immediate action on it, they probably had less opportunity to pass on their DNA. Stated differently then, we are the descendants of risk aversion savants. So most of us still fear loss much more than we value gain. Cognitive bias number two. What you see is all there is. We often measure risks by how quickly we can bring up examples of that risk, bad or good. This is called the availability bias, and we assess based on what we can recall, not necessarily even on what happens most often. And as we just established, bad is stronger, right? What's available typically is what's more negative. It's not, bad isn't just stronger, bad is stickier. So bad examples tend to be more vivid. Less threatening examples, even if they occur more frequently, just don't spring to mind as quickly. And often where we have to make decisions rather quickly, we don't have time to really dredge up everything. It's just going to be easier for the worse examples, the more threatening examples, and hence more vivid examples to come up. Information that we have but we don't find the time to retrieve is really no more helpful to us than not having that information in the first place. If we don't see it in our mind pretty quickly, our mind just ignores it. And sometimes just even a few more minutes can make the difference. Cognitive bias number three. Yeah, I'm good. Status quo bias is the idea that most of the decisions we face will always have, even if we don't state it explicitly, the do nothing alternative. And when we look to the research, it's easier to go with the flow. It's just easier to stick with what we have. There has to be an overwhelming preponderance of evidence and support that the change is going to be worth it, that we're not going to lose what we have, that where we would go would actually be significantly better enough that's going to be worth the trouble. Some other cognitive biases to keep in mind, again, these mental tricks, these little bugs in our mental software. Confirmation bias. This is the tendency to search for or interpret information in a way that confirms our own preconceptions, and to devalue, to discredit information that doesn't support our chosen views. Narrow framing. This is the idea that we tend to set up very binary decisions. It's just the either or, just the whether to do this or not, with the not being kind of the status quo thing again. We set up those kind of decisions instead of generating even a third alternative, or much less a fourth or a fifth. When we generate more options, the research shows we actually do come up with better decisions. Curse of knowledge. We, no matter how hard we try, find it very difficult to place ourselves back into a position of being completely naive to a field of knowledge. When knowledge of a topic diminishes our ability to think about it from this less informed but a more neutral perspective, we think that we can get back to where we were before we knew some of the things in this area, and we just can't get there. Distinction bias, this tendency to view two options as more dissimilar when evaluating them simultaneously than when you evaluate them separately. It's almost when you put them together to evaluate, to make that distinction, distinctions are drawn out that loom larger than they would than if you considered the items separately. It's the comparison effect may make some of the distinctions seem more important than they actually are. Lastly, and a very important one, is the omission bias. And this is the tendency to judge harmful actions as worse or even less moral than equally harmful omissions or inactions. And what we can see, we tend to value more. We tend to, again, they're stickier. What we don't do is harder to quantify. So omission bias can skew our thinking as well. I am Adam Hansen. I am the Principal and VP of Innovation for Ideas to Go.